If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with a new episode of Under the Radar. Yeah, I kinda was a little busy last week to do another episode, but yeah, there were a couple of big releases that came out last weekend that I wanted to cover, but I didn't get a chance to. Who knows, maybe sometime during the off time in December, I'll actually do an episode of Under the Radar to talk about some albums that I missed and see what happens with that. But anyways, so let's get started with this week's episode. 4 albums I wanted to check out from the weekend of September 15th, all vastly different in their own ways. And we're going to kick things off with one of the big ones that wasn't Baroness or Alkaloid, and that is Brujeria with Esto es Brujeria. So this came out on Nuclear Blast Records. This is their first album in 7 years. And, well, my history with this band has been a bit spotty, mostly in songs I've heard from Brujeria in the past. After all, I do know who they are and their story, you know, featuring former, current members of bands like Napalm Death and Carcass, Fear Factory, Faith No More, Dimmu Borgir, among so many bands that have members that have come and gone in Brujeria. So yeah, this is my first full album I'm checking out from this band. I've heard, like I said, songs in the past. But yeah, basically everything in Spanish, so I'm not going to know what the hell is being said. But I know my buddy Horror Master is probably going to want to kill me for saying that. But hey, I do not know how to speak Spanish, so cut me some slack. But anyways, so this is death grind, like a mixture of death metal and grindcore. But you also get some thrashy bits that come in here and there on this album, and even early in the album, especially on the first track, you even get little hints of technical play. And then even like Liberace band parts in the opening track, but then as the album progresses, it just kind of goes off the rails with nasty tremolo riffs, some groove pockets come in, gang vocals, all in Spanish, of course. The production, I actually like how gritty the production is, but the mix is really good. And then, of course, probably my favorite part of the whole album, them doing their own version of Eric Clapton's Cocaine called Cocaina, which is pretty fucking funny. But yeah, if you are a fan of bands like Brutal Truth, Misery Index, Napalm Death, Nauseam, you will definitely find stuff to enjoy about this. I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. I think that's a fair rating. There's definitely some songs that kind of run into each other and kind of feel a little similar, but it's all about the energy and the over-the-topness of it. So yeah, 8 out of 10. Now we move on to a couple of debut albums from a couple of upcoming bands. First, Roots of the Old Oak with The Devil in His Wicked Ways. This came out on Hammerhard Records, and this is a UK death doom band, and yeah, like I said, this is their first output, and I would say for the most part, this is more doom metal with death metal vocals. There's not really a whole lot of like death metal rhythms going on this album, unlike some death doom bands where they will incorporate some death metal rhythmically. This is for the most part like doom metal, but with death metal vocals for the most part. The growls are pretty low, these riffs just get doomy, atmospheric, eerie melodies, but the guitar tone, I will admit, is a pretty nasty sounding guitar tone. I don't think it's quite HM2, but it's definitely pretty raw, pretty buzzy, and the production itself pretty nasty with a really good mix, as you can hear the bass, and even the bass has moments of melody to shine on this album. But if you are a fan of like Druid Lord, Hooded Menace, but more specifically I would say early Paradise Lost and early My Dying Bride, this will be up your alley. I give this one also an 8 out of 10. Definitely some potential here, but if you're going to be a death doom band, I would like to hear maybe 1 or 2 moments of death metal rhythms, whether it be double kick or chugging parts mixed in with the doom. But that's just a little nitpick, but yeah, still a solid album. Now we move on to another debut, and that is Fabricant with Drudge to the Thicket. So this came out on Profound Lore, big Canadian label that's been pumping out some great music over the last decade or so. And this is a California-based death metal band. Dare I say, like, blackened and even tech death to some degree, because holy shit, some of these riffs just get flat out technical, but then you get a lot of black metal moments that pop up here and there. Even some prog touches with some of the melodies and even some of the guitar patterns that are being brought forth onto your ears. But it maintains this evil darkness throughout. And even the production, pretty good solid mix. But one of the other big things about this album is how dissonant it gets. Like, pretty much almost like they're paying homage to some old school death metal bands and old school, like, early tech death stuff. So if you are a fan of bands like Immolation, Demolich, Gorguts, and even Time Ghoul, there's definitely a lot to enjoy about this album. And this band, I think if we get another album from them in the future, it will blow this one out of the water, and they might get even more out of control. Broken record, I'm also going to give this an 8 out of 10. Pretty solid album for what it is. Definitely some potential here. We just have to see what comes next. And now that brings us to probably the biggest release out of these four, and one that I thought about doing an individual review for, but I decided since this is my first time listening to this band, let's put it on under the radar, and that is Tesseract with War of Being. This came out on, I believe it's K-Scope Records, which is a subsidiary of Peaceville. And this is a British progressive metal band. Some people call them gent, but I'll say it again. Gent is not a genre. It's just 8-string guitars. That's all. But anyways, I've heard a lot of good things about this band. Definitely get compared to bands like Periphery and even Meshuggah. I can see the Periphery connection. The Meshuggah, not as much. Maybe a couple of, like, polyrhythms or just syncopated moments that might make you think Meshuggah, but they're very few and far between. And even the genty guitars, not that prevalent on here, which I was happy about, because when bands get too self-indulgent with the genty guitars, I lose interest in it. Thankfully, they only do it sparingly, and it keeps everything fresh. But you get some downright heavy riffs, intense gruff vocals, and then, like, some really cool atmospheric passages, tasteful melody, tight rhythm section, nice solid grooves. But I have to say, Daniel Tompkins' vocals, when it comes down to the cleans, they're quite soothing, and they don't sound like fucking Spencer Sotelo. I don't get how anybody would like that vocal style from Spencer, but that's just me. But anyways, like, Daniel Tompkins as a vocalist blows Spencer Sotelo out of the water. In fact, Daniel Tompkins, I could almost compare him to, like, Tim Charles from Neo Obliviscaris in terms of those clean vocals. Very tuneful, very soothing, fitting with the sections, and the production. Probably the best production out of these four albums, but this mix is really good. Like, all the instruments are perfectly leveled, the bass is prominent, nothing's weighing in on top of each other, and songwriting-wise, I'm shocked it's taken me this long to listen to this band. This is definitely a band I need to dive further into in the future. But yeah, if you are a fan of Meshuggah and Periphery, but I would say more specifically Dream Theater and, dare I say, Between the Buried and Me, you will dig this. I certainly dug it. I give this one 9 out of 10. This is some fantastic prog metal right here, and one that I should definitely pick up and maybe even check out their earlier works and kind of get the evolution. But of course, these are all just my opinions. What did you guys think of the four albums I brought up? Of course, the links to the albums will be in the description box, but until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.